Let's take a minute to hear a word from our sponsor for this week's Ag Report, Elite Tire.
Elite Tire and Automotive. Ever have one of those days and just need a little hand? Well, with our remote services, we'll just hop right on it. Get you back on the road quick and easy. With automotive services to cover all your mechanical needs. Need that state inspection done? Well, we can do that too. So roll on in and see a friendly face. Give us a call and we can be right on the spot to assist you. So trust the friendly folks down at Elite Tire and Automotive, 972-775-1055.
Folks, welcome to this week's Ag Report. So Andrew asked me recently, he said, kind of tell us how farming has changed over your career. And so I'm going to try and share with you a little bit about, what that has looked like. So the basic premise of farming, of agriculture, is still the same. It's been the same since God created it. We are trying to raise things from the earth, from the soil. Whether that's corn or cotton or milo or sunflower, or soybeans, that kind of stuff. But some of how that goes about has changed, a little bit. And so in my window of experience from when I started, we had soil tests that we would do to find out the nutrient level of the ground. And then we had a chart, and they still have them, of I always like to think of it kind of as a barrel of an old wooden barrel, and they have slats all the way around it. And those slats would indicate different nutrients, including water and sun and heat units, cold units, that kind of stuff. And so if you think about it, the barrel is only going to hold enough water as where the shortest slat is. So it doesn't matter how tall your barrel is. If you have a slat that stops down here, that's where the water is going to fill up and run out. That's it. Well, those slats can be nutrients, or they could be sunlight hours, or they could be heat units, any of that stuff. Some of it we can control. Some of it we can't. The nutrient part we can. So what we try to do is we try to estimate an average of what our yield is. So where that slat, we know that we're never going to, fill the barrel completely full with grain. That only happens, once in a lifetime kind of a deal. And you can't necessarily shoot for that because it's too expensive. You've got to kind of find an average according to your fields and your practices of what you think you're going to make. And that's what you try and shoot for. And you give nutrients to that so that in a dry year, if you don't make it, you haven't lost too much money. And so that's still, done today, basically, just with computers and that kind of stuff. So when I started, we put land in beds. Okay. So you had beds out there, and most of it was on 40-inch rows, maybe 38-inch rows. And we planted with blackland planters, and a lot of them had inner tubes on the back. The inner tubes would help press that seed down and make good contact for it to grow, that kind of stuff. When I started, now obviously I couldn't have the newest equipment. They had monitors, out then. I wasn't able to afford one of those till years later, and so monitoring the planter meant just turning around and trying to make sure all the shafts worked. And then every once in a while, you had to get off and dig in the dirt to make sure there was still seed. Is kind of how it was done. There were even planters that I had seen, I've never used. They had a seat in the back of them. And a guy would just ride back there, and he would look at all the boxes and kind of watch them, make sure a chain didn't break, that kind of stuff. But like I say, they had electronic monitors, if you bought new stuff when I started. And a lot of those would just consist of a simple light that would go off. If they had an electric eye, if it didn't see grain dropping, then that light would go off and you would look. And then shortly thereafter, they came up with ones that would actually count the seed and tell you approximately how many seed were being dropped, to where today it tells you if it's dropping one seed or two seed. They call that doubles. It tells you the spacing. It tells you the pressure that it's putting in the ground, all kind of stuff that it tells you, of course, tied with the satellite and that kind of stuff. But along with that, it is also incorporated the fertilizer. And so it will tell you how much fertilizer you're putting out. We call it writing a recipe. So remember, I was telling you about those soil samples and stuff. So back when I started, you made a blanket statement or a blanket application of fertilizer. You didn't micromanage it and do, well, this hill on the field, we're going to put X amount of fertilizer. And down here in the bottom, in the same field, in the same pass, we're going to put Y amount of fertilizer. Well, that's what they can do today, is as they come through there in the same exact pass, they can variable that fertilizer to put a little more down here in the bottom, a little less up there on the hill. So it's really, been a lot of changes in there. There's some guys, that got a little more age than I do that have really seen a lot of changes in their career. But in mine, that's on the technology side. And then, of course, when I started, there were no GMO grains at all. So that came in while I was going. I'm trying to think. I think corn was the very first one. Then cotton was a couple of years later. And then we had soybeans and a few years later after that. And then some of the other technologies that came in. But, when I started looking at a seed catalog, was basically just looking at some of the traits of how tall or short the plant is and what's good for, your area. Now, when you look at them, there's all kind of traits with different herbicides and different insects that they're naturally resistant to and that kind of stuff. So that has changed quite a bit in my career. And like I say, the other guys that are older than me, they've seen even more than that change with the varieties that they had. So anyways, give you a little glimpse into, it's ever evolving. We always have to eat. We have to be able to provide for more and more people. Now we're feeding for every one farmer about 168 people, I believe, something like that. I don't remember the exact ratios, but back in the 2000s, I think it was around 150 people. And back in the 90s, it was maybe 130 people. So you can see we're feeding more and more people for every one farmer, and that's important to know, and that's important to understand why we have to have these technologies. Also, you have to remember we are doing it with less farmland. All across the country, there is less land to raise crops on because people are building houses on them. So that's another reason why we have to have this technology to help be able to produce more with less people and more with less land. So anyways, give you a little glimpse into that. Y'all take care now.